In this video, we're going to talk about common workflows in R. So how you're actually interacting with RStudio to have R evaluate commands and do various data analyses. To begin, let's point out that we won't work directly in the console. While we can type in statistical commands over here and evaluate them, it's generally not a good idea to work directly from the console for any extended period of time because we can't save what we're doing there. Instead, it's better to type in the scripting window. So I would type in 1 + 1, push Command Enter, and it copies and pastes that entire line into the console and evaluates it. Now, the reason why this is nice is we can do several different lines of code and then save that code for later. So let's add a few more lines of code that we want to see how R works and we want to store it for later. So rnorm 10 will generate 10 observations from a standard normal distribution. If I push Command Enter, again, it copies and pastes that line into the console and evaluates it. And we can make a plot with hist rnorm 1e4. So here I'm generating 10,000 observations from a standard normal distribution, and I'm making a histogram of those. When I push Command Enter, it makes the histogram, and notice that the plot shows up in this bottom left window. This bottom left pane is going to contain information on the files in your working directory, the plots that you're currently viewing, and the help menu. Let's see the help menu. To access help in R, you use question mark. So question mark hist to get the help documentation on the histogram function. I push Command Enter, and notice that the tab over here has switched to help, and we see the actual documentation for the hist function in R. Okay? Now, let's suppose that this is our entire script. This is all we want to do. I'm going to save this. How do I save the script? I can go File, Save, or Command S. I'm going to type in my_script. Notice that I'm on my desktop, .r, enter. And now if I minimize RStudio, you can see that the script has actually saved onto the desktop. I'm going to go back and open RStudio. And I can even close the script file. I can close RStudio. I'm not going to save the .r data file. And I can actually reopen this by going down, going to RStudio, going to File, Open File, or Command O. It was on my desktop, my script, open, and there it is. Now, you'll notice that this bottom right pane is somewhat annoyingly large. We can deal with that in two ways. One, we could just go and minimize it, but then every time we close a script window, it will reopen to its current size. For example, I'll minimize it here, I'll close the script window, now it's maximized, that's normal, but if I make a new script, I'll go File, New File, RScript, or Command-Shift-N, and now it's back to that annoyingly large size again. So I would minimize it. If you're doing this a lot, it actually gets quite annoying. So you can click here and actually just shrink this window down. I do this quite a bit, to almost nothing, and then when it does pop up, at least it's very small. Now I'm going to push Command O to open that script file. Here, I'm going to click Open, and then there I have my script file back and ready to go. So I can run the same analysis over again. Notice now that I actually have two script files open. I have myscript.r and I also have untitled1. That's a file that I opened, but I didn't type anything in and I didn't save. I can navigate back to it by clicking on it, and then I can type in it just like I did before. So maybe I want now exponential observations, REXP 100. I evaluate those and they're over here. I'll go ahead and minimize this. Now, I'll save this as myscript2.r, and now I have two different script files open. Okay, I can navigate between them by clicking, or, and this is a much more convenient way, I can use the hotkeys Control Alt and then the arrow keys right and left on my machine so that my hand never has to leave the keyboard. That's a very convenient way because typically when we're actually doing things in RStudio, we have several different scripting windows open. Now, while on the topic of having several scripting windows open, one of the things that we'll want to discuss is projects. In RStudio, projects are used to organize several scripts and other documents together into one place to have a local repository of sorts for a particular project that you're working on. Probably the best way to think about projects in RStudio is to think about a statistics graduate student in their first year courses. So a standard offering in the first year courses for a statistics graduate student are 3 classes: mathematical statistics, computational statistics, and statistical methods. Now, you can imagine if you're one of these graduate students, one of the things that you're going to be doing is working on homework and readings for each of those classes. Now, if you're a normal person, you just have one desk. So when you're working on mathematical statistics, you probably have several things open on that desk. You probably have your math stat textbook, you probably have a notebook that you use to take notes in, you probably have another notebook that you use to actually do calculations by hand on, and then you probably have your computer. Then, when you're ready to work on your computational statistics stuff, you put away your math stat stuff and you open up now your computational statistics book, your computer, your computational statistics notebook that you take notes in, and probably some scratch paper that you're going to use for calculations in computational statistics. In other words, every time you change classes, you're going to change all of the stuff that's on your desk. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you had 3 different desks? And on each desk, you could leave all of the stuff open for each of the classes that you're working on. So that would save some time. You wouldn't have to pack things away necessarily. You could just change desks. Now, RStudio gives you a similar functionality in the form of projects. Projects in RStudio are going to allow us to organize our scripts in the same way that the student who's taking the statistics classes organizes things onto different desks. Here's how we create a project. We go File, New Project. We don't want to save this workspace image. We'll click New Directory since we don't have anything yet, and New Project. From here, it's asking us where we want to save the project on our computer. Projects will always be associated with a particular folder or directory on your computer. Where is that folder, or where do we want RStudio to create it? We'll click Browse. Here, I am just going to put it on my desktop, so I'll go ahead and click OK, and I'll call this Computational Statistics. And I'll click Create Project. R has entirely closed away all of the other stuff that I was working on, and you can see that I'm in essentially an entirely new RStudio window. Okay, I'll push Command-Shift-N to create a RScript file, and I will minimize this environment pane. Then I will click over here and clear that, and I will minimize this. Before we go further, it's helpful to see where it's saving this on my machine. As we saw, we saved this to our desktop, so I'll go ahead and minimize RStudio, and you can see here are the script files that we saved. My script 2, and then computational statistics, which is a directory. If I double click this, you can see that there's computationalstatistics.rproj. That's the file that RStudio is going to be using to save things like what files are open and so on. So we'll never really deal with this file directly. Okay, close that. Let's go back into RStudio. Here it is. Now, let's say that our computational statistics is very simple today. All we need to do is to do 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1. So we'll save this RScript file. Of course, we're saving it in the directory that we just created. So 1 plus 1.r. And maybe the next time we have something also simple, 2 plus 2. Oh, 2 plus 2. Okay, save 2 plus 2.r. Okay, now both of these are open and they're both associated with computational statistics. Let's go ahead and close RStudio. Now, where are they? Again, they're in this directory right here, so you can see those script files. I'll go ahead and close that. Let's look at what happens when we open RStudio again. RStudio is open, and it's actually in the project Computational Statistics. Now, let's say that we want to go over to statistical methods. Okay? I'm going to make a new project for statistical methods. It's going to be in a new directory. It's a new project. It's also on the desktop, and this one is statistical methods. I go ahead and create project. And maybe in this class, what I have to do is I have to run a linear regression. So I have to use the lm function to run a linear regression. So I'll say x is 1 to 10, y is 2 times x plus 3 plus r norm 10, and SD is 0.2. So this is a nice little trick here. So I highlight things by using Shift as usual, and then I can zoom to the beginning of the line by pushing Command left, and then I'll push up to highlight everything, and I can push Command Enter to source it all at the same time. Now I can look, plot x, y. What does it look like? Ooh, that's not a very nice plot. We'll see better ways to make plots using ggplot a little bit later in the course. To run the linear model, we can type in lm y tilde x. This is not really the preferred way, but this works. And this fits our linear model. There's our intercept term. There is our coefficient on the x variables. This is close to 3, this is close to 2, which we know are the right values. We're going to go ahead and save this. We'll save this as linear model.r. Okay, so this is saved in the statistical methods project. Okay, so now we have a statistical methods project. Here's the R file associated with that. Let's say that we're done with that particular night's homework in statistical methods. We can actually switch back to our other project by clicking here, open project. We're not going to save the .r data file, and we'll go desktop, computational statistics, open. And now notice that the 1 plus 1 and 2 plus 2 that we used for our computational statistics class are still there. So this is a really convenient way to organize your work using different projects. One last thing about projects. Sometimes it's useful to have several projects opened at once. To do that, we can go File, Open Project in New Session. We'll click here. Again, now we already have computational statistics open, so now we'll open up statistical methods. Click statistical methods. Open, and now you can kind of see at the edge of the screen that there's two things open here. Here is my statistical methods work, and then actually I can navigate to the computational statistics by just pushing Command Tab. There are similar codes on Windows to do this, and now I have two projects open in two different windows. This is like having two different browsers open, each with their own set of tabs, where the different browsers have different tabs according to different things that you're doing. Okay, so this is the standard workflow in RStudio. We're going to work in the scripting window, we're going to save our scripts, and as is useful, we're going to save those scripts in projects that are associated with specific tasks that we're working on.